Hi there, in today's video I'm going to be showing you how to build the formwork for the pizza oven that I'm currently building. This is going to be a relatively quick and simple video, but if this is something that you're planning on doing, you're probably going to find it very useful because it shows you the exact process that I used to create the formwork to build the actual oven itself around. Now, first things first, I'm actually going to be doing a small amount of brickwork here just around the outside edge of the floor of the pizza oven, and the reason for this is we want to have kind of a solid outer edge that we can fit the formwork into. So these bricks are going to be allowed to go off and form that solid barrier. The reason we want to do that is if we just put the formwork straight on top of the oven and then start building the bricks around it, there's a very real risk that the formwork could move, it could knock the bricks out of line, we could just end up having a lot of problems. So by doing this first, we kind of create that solid border and then we can build the formwork to the brickwork. Okay, so what you can see me doing now is just leveling that back corner brick up, just getting it perfect, exactly where I want it. And once I'm happy with that, I'm going to move on to the front corner to do exactly the same. I'm going to get that just right and level, then I'm going to level it through with that back corner brick. And once that's done and I'm happy with it, I can start adding the bricks in between. So if you've actually watched any of the previous videos in this build, you'll know that I'm not a bricklayer. I've never actually done any bricklaying prior to this, but this is the process that I used throughout the whole build. And it's definitely a process that I've kind of got used to, and whilst I can't guarantee it's definitely the best way to do it because I'm not a professional, it's certainly the way that I found to be the easiest. Certainly for the build that I'm doing, this has worked out really well for me. So we're just going to follow that process all the way around. And once we've done that outside edge of engineering bricks, we're also going to add some fire bricks on the inside with a 25mm gap between the fire bricks and the engineering bricks. And these bricks are specifically designed for ovens, kilns, that kind of thing that are going to be operating at very high temperatures. I'm also using a refractory mortar, which is an absolute nightmare to work with. It goes off really quickly. It's not as easy to work with as normal mortar, but if you are building this kind of thing, that's what you're going to need to use. Okay, so once that's done, we're going to move on to building the formwork, and I apologize for being so close to the camera here, but I think you can get an idea of what I'm doing. I'm actually drawing a semicircle on this piece of plywood. The way I did this was by adding a screw into the plywood and then anchoring my tape measure off that to mark a semicircle around. So first things first, I'm just going to draw a little upstand here for that bottom course of bricks, and then that's where the semicircle is going to run from. So you can see me using the screw there to anchor the tape measure just to double check it. Once I'm happy with that, I'm going to start using the jigsaw to cut that out. So relatively simple process, just follow the line. And then once that's cut out, we're just going to give it a little check in the brickwork that we've laid earlier on. I will say the good thing about the refractory mortar, the only good thing about it, because it is a nightmare to work with, is it goes off very quickly. So whilst that's a bit of a nightmare in most scenarios because you've got to work much faster, in this scenario it worked out really nicely because you can actually start building the formwork in there straight away and it's not really going to move. Okay, so we're going to have to do a front and a back here for this formwork, so we're just going to take that bit that fit nicely, draw around it with a pencil. That's going to ensure that these are exactly the same shape. And once we've got it marked out, we can just grab the jigsaw again and just go around the line, nice and neat. Take your time and just get that perfectly on the line. And that's going to ensure that it's exactly the same as the other one. Okay, so let's just double check these just to make sure. As you can see, they're perfectly identical, so I'm very happy with that. Once that's done, we can actually move on to adding some timber, creating the formwork. And for this, I actually reused some of the timber that I used for the formwork that I did on the elevated slab. So these are the pieces of timber that were holding up the formwork that I poured concrete into. And it actually worked out that these were exactly the right length. I literally did not cut these at all. I just used the old formwork, I stripped it down, took all the screws out, and just used these timber pieces exactly as they were. So that was nice. It was one less job for me to do. And obviously if you're following a similar plan to this, you will probably be able to do exactly the same thing. Okay, so as you can see, I'm just adding 2 screws in either end through the plywood into the timber. And to do this, I'm just using a drill there with a little drill bit to pilot hole the screw holes, and then I'm adding the screws in with an impact driver. Next, I'm going to add the top piece in. So for that, I just had a little piece of 2x1 line around. I don't know why I didn't use another piece of that 3x2, because I had quite a few of them. But for some reason I used that piece of 2x2. And then these last two pieces, I just went back to the 3x2. So yeah, I don't know what I was thinking there. Should have done 3x2 at the top, but it doesn't really matter. Okay, so same process all the way around, couple of screws either end. And that's going to give us a nice solid frame. Okay, so once we're happy with that, we can grab our sheet material that we're going to be adding around the outside. And personally, I used some 3.6mm ply here. Now, the only reason I used this 3.6mm ply is it was actually free. When I went to the timber merchant, there were some off-coats and they just said, well, you can have it for nothing. If I was paying for it, I probably would use hardboard just because it's a little bit more flexible. This ply really wanted to snap, and in fact I did snap one piece, which I will explain in a second. But what I'm actually doing here, you can see I started from the bottom and then I'm pilot drilling all the screws before I go into the middle, and then finally I'm going to start screwing the top. But yeah, this first one obviously did not snap. Now the second piece that I tried to fit did snap, and the reason it snapped is because I went from the top to the bottom. So obviously we have that little upstand from the bottom, which means you don't go quite as aggressively into that curve. However, when you start from the top, you're straight into the curve, and basically when I started to fix into the middle, it just snapped the plywood. So that's my recommendation there. Use hardboard if possible and start from the bottom up. Okay, so once we've done both sides, we can just check that in place. And as you can see, this was quite snug. I was a little bit worried initially here. It wasn't fitting in quite as easily as I would hope. But the reason for this was it was just a little bit wavy on that bottom edge. So when I actually got it in place there, looking very snug, you can see here, I just pushed the plywood in and it just kind of dropped in place. And it were a lovely snug fit. So I actually was really, really happy with that. And yeah, I think it gives you an idea now of what we're actually working with, what the oven's going to start looking like. So yeah, I hope you liked this video, hope you found it useful. If you still want to watch the rest of this pizza oven build, hit the subscribe button, like the video, feel free to comment below, and I will see you in the next one.